everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the Cat. Cat, how are you doing?
Still sick, but not dying. Hooray!
Yes, always the winter illness has set in. I see.
I've had bronchitis like 4 or 5 times in the last year and a half, so there's something wrong with me.
Well, look on the bright side. One more time and your punch card's full and you get a free 6-inch sub at Subway.
Oh, God. Food sounds so good right now.
All right. And hey, yours is a face I've not seen in a while. Skyblaze, how are you doing?
I'm not dead. That's about as far as I'm willing to go at the moment.
We asked for so little in our lives.
I know, right?
So yes, we got a almost a full bench this week. So yes, but we got a fun show for you guys this week. This week we are going to be discussing Ralph Breaks the Internet, the sequel to Wreck-It Ralph, and so that's gonna be a lot of fun. But of course there is procedure to follow, so we are going to start the show as always with the random topic of the week. And for this week's random topic, so on my way home from work this morning, I'm listening to the radio, and the morning show that I listened to, they're talking about this study that was released that says that most people's musical tastes are pretty much cemented in stone in their late teens and early 20s, that the music that you listen to in your late teen years, that's the music that you listen to for the rest of your life, and that's going to be the standard by which you are always going to judge music. So it's kind of one of those things where they try and study why old people always think young people stuff is terrible. So the question that I kind of want to put to you guys is what music were you listening to in your late teens, early 20s? Are you still listening to that music? And do you think that time frame of your life kind of influences your musical taste today? So, Kat, why don't we start with you? What kind of music were you listening to in your teen years?
Well, my early teens is way different from my late teens. So, because I loved boy bands when I was, like 12 and 13 years old. And then when I got into my later teens, I was listening to probably nothing but anime soundtracks. And maybe some like old pop music that I grew up on. So like some Paula Abdul and stuff like that. But then in my early 20s, I got introduced by, you, Dr. Gonzo, to symphonic metal. So I did a lot of listening to Nightwish. And maybe I got another friend who introduced me to the concept of power metal. So I got into some of that, and then whatever was on the radio, and Weird Al. So much Weird Al. But that didn't start in my late teens. That started.
I think everybody listens to Weird Al. Like, it's just something you do.
It's a requirement.
The Simpsons said it best. He who is tired of Weird Al is tired of life.
Truth.
Okay. So now, do you still kind of judge music that comes out today against the music that you listened to when you were a teenager in your early 20s?
Oh, God, no, because I'm aware that a lot of the music that I listened to at the time was trash. Like, a lot of the stuff that was on the radio was garbage. And the stuff that I liked, especially earlier when I was listening to boy bands, I'm like, yeah, that's not actually good stuff. I just enjoyed it. And then I've always been very aware that just because I like something doesn't make it good or bad. But a lot of the stuff, like, I love Nightwish, but Nightwish changed singers a couple of times. And I'll never like any of the singers as much as I like the original, Like, I'll never like, if I like a band like Dream Theater, I'll never like a Dream Theater album as much as I like that first album of theirs that I heard,
Skyblaze, what about you? What music were you listening to in your teen and young adult years?
Let's get weird.
My musical taste is really strange. It was very, very strange when I was a teenager because I was listening to a lot of classic rock and metal. Even some progressive rock, and as well as the indie alt stuff. What later, the stuff that later got kind of folded into the Britpop scene, even though it really wasn't. Manic Street Preachers, Ocean Colour Scene, Blur, that sort of set.
Okay.
But my musical taste has always been strange, and I was never really into pop music. So people say like, there's that thing about like, oh, there's a festival on. It's like, I have not heard of any of these people, and like, does that mean I'm getting old? It's like, no, because I wouldn't have heard of any of them when I was 15. I don't listen to pop music. The only kind of pop music stuff I like is stuff that dates from the mid 80s, where synth pop and the classic goth scene was popular and in the charts. So, and I still listen to a lot of prog, and my things like metal and a lot of the heavier metal, death metal, power metal, a lot of that, the speed metal, a lot of that stuff is something that I've discovered since I've been in my late 20s and 30s. And certainly my appreciation for things like chiptune has come about very recently. Because it's not something I appreciated necessarily at the time, it's something that I've discovered recently.
Okay, all right. So
I'm weird, I don't know what to tell you.
All right, well, for me, I don't really remember what I was listening to when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, most because I didn't really have a preference for anything. Rather than liking specific genres, I would like specific songs. I wouldn't get hyped up about bands or genres. It was just specific songs. Like Kat will tell you, I had a mix CD when we were going to college together that was the most random shit in the world. One track would be Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, and then the next track would be the opening theme to Trigun. It was just the most random, and I still have that mix CD somewhere, but it was the most random crap in the world. Nightwish was the first time I really got hyped about a whole group. So I would say that my musical tastes didn't really solidify into being really heavy into heavy metal until I played a little video game called Brutal Legend, which is all about heavy metal, and it introduced me to a bunch of heavy metal bands that I just fell in love with and still listen to this very day. So it was like so many things in my life, it all circles back down to video games, and so it was Brutal Legend that made me a real big metalhead. And then I also got listening into a bunch of classic rock. Now, whether or not the thing, I don't know how it is in the UK and Europe, which I know have really big heavy metal scenes, but over here in the US, everything's really kind of dominated by either pop music or R&B and hip hop. There's the rock and metal scene isn't as big as it was in, say, the 70s or the 80s. So as far as me judging the music that comes out today against my tastes from when I was younger, it's really less a case of it's almost like comparing apples to oranges, because the stuff that I listen to is by and large completely different from what is usually getting radio play. Thank God for 98 Rock, because if it wasn't for, that's the one rock station in all of Maryland that actually plays music that I actually listen to. So if I didn't have that, my commutes would be even more horrible than they already are. So it's really hard for me to compare the music that I enjoyed when I was younger to the music that's coming out today, because, like I said, it's almost completely different genres. So, and then of course I also listen to a bunch of video game soundtracks because like Skyblaze, I'm weird that way. And then another thing I'm really big into is video game cover bands. So what other people are getting excited about. God, who's one of those tween pop singers like Hannah Montana or Miley Cyrus or whoever coming into town? I get stoked if Power Glove is playing 3 states away from me. So
I got really excited when Hardline, Johnny Gioeli of Crush 40's other band, were playing at the local rock club. I was like, I am fucking there.
Yeah.
You know what's sad is that I don't actually like concerts. I used to work at a bunch of concerts. Like I worked Metallica, I worked Green Day, I worked Cher, I worked Madonna, Beastie Boys. I can't even go to concerts and enjoy them anymore. Like, it's too many people, it's too loud. I'm so old, you guys. Like, it's everything, just like all the noise and the people give me anxiety now. And it's like, nah. This band that I like is coming into town, but I don't actually.
I love going to concerts, but I absolutely hate listening to recordings of live concerts because I spend half of it going, shut up, people, stop clapping. I want to hear music, not you screaming and wooing.
What's really quite funny, to demonstrate how bizarre my upbringing was, in, I think it was 2002, my mother took me to see Rammstein.
Well, you know.
I've never been more jealous of your upbringing in my life than I am at this moment.
I mentioned that Lordi were playing, and my mother was like, "Ooh, where?"
God damn it!
This is what my upbringing was like.
I would kill to see Lordi. I would spill the blood of a dozen men to see Lordi. And knowing them, that would probably be the ticket price.
That's probably quite true. They were playing in the local Rock Dive.
Oh. But anyway, so we want to hear from you, our listeners. What was the music that you listened to in your teen years? And has that become like sort of the gold standard by which you judge music nowadays, or do you still kind of keep your mind open and really enjoy some of the newer stuff that comes out? So sound off in the comments. Let's hear from you. And with that, we're going to jump into everybody's favorite segment, my favorite segment, your favorite segment, the Ask a Geek. And we got some questions here. Let's pull them out here. Skyblaze, you've got a bit of a backlog here.
Oh God! All right, okay, go ahead.
I'll just put myself on mute for like the next 10 minutes.
Okay, so this is an older question because Skyblaze has been gone for a while. So Skyblaze's first question for you is from Erica, and she asked what you think of the rumors of a live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movie are, and how you think that's going to go down.
Well, it's not really a rumor anymore. It's got a release date.
Like I said, this is an older question.
True. I don't know what to make of it because of the some of the teaser trailers. It's been like, especially with.
Wait, there's trailers out already?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my God!
It was a very brief teaser, but yeah, there's been some stills and things, and it's like it's one of those kind of live action CG mix things, and I'm like, I don't know how to feel about this. Because one of the things about Sonic is the fact that it exists in its own world in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try and mix that with the real world, I mean, we all saw Sonic X and saw how well that worked out.
And that was a cartoon.
Yeah,
they could
right.
Conceivably get away with that.
And somebody mentioned, like, one of the reasons that video game movies tend to not work is when they try to take these characters and dump them in the real world.
I believe you were referencing one of my many Facebook posts about Detective Pikachu, because I said the exact same thing last week when we talked about that trailer.
You're not the only person that said it. I've seen it said in various places, including on Tumblr, which is, I know, a place you will never visit. So it's like you can't separate the characters from the setting. And yeah, there's been a still where it's like, welcome to Green Hill. It's like, but is that really Green Hill, or are you just like painting up a sign saying it's Green Hill? So I don't know how to feel about it, and I need to know more about it before I know how I'm going to feel about it.
My one concern with a live-action Sonic movie is again, and I had to take a look at the trailer, but like, you know, it's fair to say that Sonic has a very distinctive design.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a design that fits with, like you said, it fits within it. It's a design that's meant to fit in its own world and with its and with characters of similar design. For an example of how mixing that style with anything else doesn't really work, see Sonic 06.
06, yeah, totally agree with that.
So it's like, you know, I'm imagining now a scenario where you're going to have an actual human actor next to a CGI Sonic the Hedgehog looking exactly like he did in the games, and I have a very hard time getting past what I imagine the disconnect would be. And that's kind of like going back to Detective Pikachu that we talked about last week. That's kind of kind of a similar reaction, kind of an uncanny valley with seeing the CGI Pokemon alongside real actors. So I kind of see something similar happening with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
But you can kind of get over that in the Detective Pikachu thing because it's presented as the Pokemon world rather than being our world.
Well, up until they introduce Mr. Mime, then all of that goes out the window.
But I've always thought he was creepy.
Oh, I have a Facebook post to share with you if you want to learn even about how Mr. Mime is even more terrifying than we ever imagined. But that's discussion for a different table. All right, next question here. This is also movie related, and this one comes from Juan, and he asks all the trans fans in the show, which is basically me and you, what we think of the upcoming Bumblebee movie coming out this Christmas. So Skyboys, I'm interested to hear your take on the trailer, since I don't think I've spoken to you about this yet. So have you seen these trailers, and what do you think about them?
I've seen at least one of the trailers. I have no idea which one it was, but I was not hugely enthusiastic about another Transformers film. I have to be honest. Until I saw the G1 style designs in the trailer, I was like, those are Transformers done properly in a film. This tiny flicker, a tiny spark of hope that this might not suck.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen the some of the stills going around of some of the other Transformers and the G1 designs, they look pretty much like the toys brought into real life. There was one that was being passed around on Facebook earlier today of Optimus Prime that I was like, I want this in toy form. I need it. It has to happen. I will not be able to achieve lasting happiness unless this is on my shelf. For myself, like I said, I mean, I'm kind of burned out on the Transformers films. I mean, we didn't even do what was it, The Last Night was the last one that came out, because I mean the fifth one just pretty much just like, okay, that's it, I'm done. When I see Optimus Prime just pop a guy, you know, like he's doing a drive-by shooting, I'm like, that's like, nope, I'm clocking out here.
Yeah, after the whole like give me your face debacle, where it's like you have absolutely no idea how to characterize any of these people.
Yeah. So after the fourth film, I kind of ducked out on Transformers. But from what I've seen of the Bumblebee trailer, it looks like it's going to be a much more character-driven story than the Bay films. I'm kind of hopeful to see, you know, maybe that they might make at least a decent story out of this. One little bit that you might find kind of humorous is that the first trailer made me start crying about 10 seconds in, because they used the sound clips of Bernie Mac from the first film talking about, you know, the car picks the driver, and I'm a huge Bernie Mac fan, and that trailer actually came out on like the 10th anniversary of his death, so it provoked all of the feels. So
I'm afraid I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
He's Bernie Mac he was the car salesman in the first movie. He is a huge comedian. He's one of what they call the kings of comedy.
Okay, like, in America, presumably, because I've never.
Yeah. So yeah. All right, and let's see if we got a question here for Kat, so she doesn't feel left out here. Okay, here's one that came in actually just today, and the question comes from Paula, and she asks, what are your thoughts on Neon Genesis Evangelion coming to Netflix and the resulting hype around it?
Oh god. So first off, I don't dislike Evangelion by any means, but it is one of the most overrated, if not the most overrated anime kind of ever, at least in the US.
Okay, before you continue, me and Skyblaze are going to go hide in the safety bunker to protect ourselves from the resulting fan backlash.
It's okay. It's okay. Those people are just in denial, but it really is. But also, like, Evangelion, like, even when it came back a couple of years ago, when they were starting the remakes and Evangelion, whatever, you cannot do this thing because they have to have the longest ass titles you've ever seen. like it's still like it has fandoms, but the fandom hasn't been like really hyped in quite some time. So people who I think are getting hyped for Evangelion's going to be on Netflix are looking at it through these like rose-colored glasses of, oh, I remember Evangelion was so cool 13 years
I've actually
ago.
seen the opposite for a lot
Like,
of I've seen people like, oh, that's going to be on Netflix. I should get around to watching that.
Well, that's where I was going to get to. Is
Yeah.
everybody knows that it's a classic, if not the classic, next to like Cowboy Bebop in the Western world. So now that it's going to be on Netflix, it's going to be a lot of people who have never seen it, who are like, this is supposed to be like a really cerebral, really awesome, really deep show, and they're going to watch it and they're going to be like, what the fuck did I just watch? So it's kind of cool that we're going to be exposing a whole new generation of fans who've never purchased anime before, who have only ever streamed it, and they're going to watch it. And it's going to be a whole new group of people who are going to get mind fucked by this show.
Actually, somebody
So
said,
that's
I was like, oh, I've
interesting.
never watched it and I'm not sure how I should go about it. And I was like, watch the series, skip the last 2 episodes, and then watch End of Evangelion. Cry. A lot. If you fancy punishing yourself a bit more, watch the Rebuild movies, and then wait 6 billion years until the next one comes out.
And if somebody were to ask me how should I go about watching it, I would say on drugs.
Yep, that's a good answer too.
They're both the right answer. But I'm really curious because I haven't delved into it because we haven't seen a big title like this come to Netflix in a hot minute. And I was actually curious because I don't know who currently has the license for the original Evangelion, as opposed to the rebuilds and stuff. So I was actually more curious about why is it just now coming to Netflix? What's going on with that?
Yeah,
because I don't know who has it and who's got the license for it in the US for what purpose, and then if that could potentially be a signifier that Netflix might actually get more, depending on what company currently has it.
Now, this is the question that I want to ask, just kind of out of random curiosity, because it's something that I kind of see happening because one of the things that I've started to tend to notice, and it's kind of been small, but I kind of see it getting bigger as time goes on, is people going back and watching some of these classic anime like Cowboy Bebop or Evangelion or Mobile Suit Gundam, and kind of wondering what the big deal with these shows is, because other shows have come out since then that have done the same things those shows did, but either more refined or with better pacing or better execution. Kind of a Seinfeld is unfunny situation. So do you see something like that similar happening with Evangelion?
Yeah, I think a lot of people who have never seen it before will watch it and wonder what the big deal was. And I can tell you now that the big deal was, at the time that Evangelion came out, there wasn't a whole lot in the way of really kind of cerebral shows, because this was like an action fighting mecha, but it also had a lot of like religious imagery, a lot of it was like a very psychological show. It was really strange and nothing else, like it was the first one to kind of like hit mainstream anime market that was like that out here in the US. And so then you had other shows come along like Serial Experiments Lane, and you got some more of the like Perfect Blue kind of like mindfuck
It was also
kind of shows.
a deconstruction of a lot of the older giant mecha tropes. So people who are coming to it completely cold, not knowing a huge amount about the kind of 70s and early 80s giant mecha anime tropes, are going to be a bit at sea with it, because they're going to be like not understanding. Because there was the whole thing where 13-year-old child is chucked into a cockpit and said go and save the world, and Evangelion was like how fucked up this is and how it would completely screw somebody over to become essentially a child soldier. And not many people have done that before. A lot of people have done it since. I mean, things like Madoka have explored it, deeply. but it was the first one to do it. And if you don't know that, then you're going to miss a lot of the subtleties involved.
In addition, this is a show that has had a lot of memes come out of it. There's, they've had a decade or more, quite a bit more than a decade to mess with Evangelion. There's like all the Shinji getting the fucking robot memes and everything. So it might be hard for a new generation, or not even a new generation, but people who've never seen it before, to take it seriously if they've been around the internet enough. So that could be part of it. It's not as unique as it was back in the day. God, I had something else, but I completely lost it. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. There's going to be a lot of people who just, are going to watch it and be like, whatever. How can this be one of the classics?
On the other hand, we might get a whole new influx of fans as well.
Yeah, and it could be great. It could be, we could see a new influx of cosplayers, and new appreciation for an old franchise that, it's so weird because, even though the rebuilds and everything came out still fairly recently, I think it was hurt by the huge stretches in between, because it would be like the first one came out, and then like over a year later, the next one came out. And like, it was a long time to get the full story. And it immediately turned off hardcore fans who didn't want to see the new style or
especially in the
characters.
UK. We didn't get the first rebuild film on DVD and Blu-ray until the second one was already out in theaters in Japan.
Yeah, and they took forever to get all of them out. It was weird to get all of it, and I feel like a lot of interest had waned in the meantime. It was kind of like Hellsing Ultimate, where it came out and then you waited like a year and a half, and then another one came out, and then you waited, and it's like in that time the enthusiasm for it died.
Yeah, how long was it between Hellsing volumes 8 and 9? Like 6 years?
It's all pretty ridiculous, and like we understand as fans that there's things going on at studios that cause this sort of thing to happen, but it can't be helped that interest wanes in the meantime. So hopefully this will bring this classic to a new generation the way it was originally presented.
Yeah, going back to the gaps, the joke between me and a friend of mine was 3 things that we'll never see released: Duke Nukem Forever, Chinese Democracy, and Hellsing number 9.
I mean, pretty much. And it also kills me because Evangelion is one of those things that doesn't die, no matter how much it wanes. It doesn't die. They're always releasing new figures for it. There's always something new coming out for it. It's one of those things that's like a franchise that has been done so much now, but just can't die. And it's fine if it doesn't. It's fine. There's always room for more Evangelion in the minds and the hearts of the fans. But it is really funny to me that, now that nobody's talking about it, it's been done for a while, and now it's coming to Netflix. Let's make a huge deal.
Sounds like we have the making of a show next year. Maybe we'll do an Evangelion retrospective.
Oh God. Don't make me do that.
All right, but that's all the time that we have for Ask the Geek questions this week. Thank you as always for sending your questions in. As always, you can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerdofthethirdpower.com, or you can drop them in the YouTube comments below this feed. We do occasionally troll through the YouTubes for questions to answer. So yes, get your questions in. We love getting them and love reading them on the air. All right, and with that, we are going to launch right into the meat of this episode, and that is our discussion of Ralph Breaks the Internet, Wreck-It Ralph 2, a movie that I certainly have been very much looking forward to because I was a huge fan of the original. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, Wreck-It Ralph. To see all these game characters up on screen and see all these video game tropes get made fun of in a Disney film. So I was hotly anticipating a sequel, and now I have it. So we're gonna talk about it and discuss what we think about it. So, Kat, we'll start with you. What were your general thoughts on Ralph Breaks the Internet?
I really enjoyed it. I've actually seen it twice already. It was fun. It was heartfelt. I fear it will, however, in the future, date itself. just due to the entire premise of the internet. But I really enjoyed it. I liked the new characters they introduced quite a bit. I loved Disney princesses being in it. Oh my god, so much. Got kind of weird, but otherwise I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed this film. Not quite as much as I enjoyed the first film, but I think that's more to do with the subject matter that it covers this film than the first film, because the first one was concerned more with video games and video game tropes, whereas this one was more about web culture. And like you mentioned, I think that's going to really date this movie, with web culture being as amorphous and ever changing as it is. But we'll get into that down the line. But no, I really love this film, and I was really excited to see it, and I'm definitely going to be going to see it again. So with that, let's talk a bit about let's start breaking this movie down to its components, parts, and let's start by talking about the plot of this film. So, Kat, do you want to give a synopsis, or should I?
Sure, I can give a synopsis. So the plot of the film basically starts with Vanellope's sort of boredom with her game. She expresses that it's become sort of, I guess,
old
boring.
hat.
Yeah, she knows everything. There's no levels to unlock or things, so everything has become very routine. And she expresses an interest in, something new, something different. And she gets that in the form of the internet. And her and Ralph go to the internet after Vanellope's game is broken, and they need a new steering wheel to fix their racing game. But they can only find it on eBay, and Mr. Litwack, the owner of the arcade where their games are at, doesn't want to pay for a new one because it's really expensive. So they decide they'll do it themselves. They'll go to the internet, go to the eBay, find the steering wheel, and save the game. So they do. That's what they do. They go to the internet, explore it all. It's all new and vast and overwhelming, and hijinks ensue as they explore the internet, and they find the steering wheel that they need. But it is an auction, and they kind of accidentally don't really understand how auctions work, and bid way too much money and don't have money because they're video game characters. So then they go on this grand adventure to make money. And they get in touch with a guy named JP Spamley, who's gonna have them go on some little quests to help get some money for them, and that leads them to the game Slaughter Race, the coolest new thing they introduced, Slaughter Race, so that they could go get a quest item in the game to sell online for real money, which they would use to buy the steering wheel. And that doesn't really go quite how they planned, and it introduces this great new character, actually a whole bunch of great new characters, but most importantly, Shank.
Played to perfection by Gal Gadot.
She's so amazing in it. And after Vanellope is introduced to Slaughter Race, he kind of falls in love with a new racing game. Everything's wild, there's explosions, there's a shark. It's pretty crazy, and it's everything Vanellope has ever wanted. And she kind of comes to that realization over the course of the rest of the film. And meanwhile, Ralph is again continuing to work on ways for them to make money so that they can buy the steering wheel so that they can go home. And it's a great exploration of Vanellope's desire to break out of her routine and strive for something new, while Ralph is in this unhealthy codependence on Vanellope, where he needs her, he needs his normality, he needs his routines, and he can't really accept anything other than what he's used to. And so it's a really beautiful exploration of their friendship, while also being a very crazy commentary on how absolutely wild and occasionally volatile the internet can be.
Let me try that again. Let me use my words. Going back to the whole thing with Litwack trying to find a steering wheel and only finding one on eBay. Can I just say that as a game collector, that spoke to my soul? because to give you an idea of how involved you can get in the game collecting hobby. Last year I paid about $100 just for the instruction manual to Earthbound because I'm trying to assemble a complete in-box copy. So when I saw Litwack, going on eBay and finding the steering wheel, I was like, oh, it's $250. I don't think I can afford that. I was like, oh, this wounds my soul because I've been there.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that goes on with game collecting on eBay. So that had me laughing, but also crying inside. I really loved how character focused the plot of this movie was, because the first one, while it was still really enjoyable, and it had some character moments in terms of exploring Ralph and his frustration with his situation. We actually got to learn a lot about Vanellope in this film as well, and I liked that it was able to balance between the two characters. It was great that while you could see both sides of the conflict in versus Ralph and Vanellope, neither one was painted as necessarily being in the wrong. Like they both had valid concerns and fears. And they were both given equal weight. And I really like that because, one of the things that I was afraid was going to happen was that Ralph was going to be painted throughout the film as basically just this completely unsympathetic, he was basically going to be the bad guy, to make a really kind of weird way pun, because he's the bad guy of his own game. But no, it's like, both characters were painted as being sympathetic, and you could see where both sides were both of them were coming from, because, as someone who, doesn't have a whole lot of friends in his day-to-day life and has some anxiety with, am I ever, if this friend goes away, am I ever going to meet somebody, make any new friends? I could sympathize very strongly with Ralph's concern that, he felt like he was going to lose his only friend. But on the other side, Vanellope, you could see, it was basically a coming of age story for her. This is basically her growing up and leaving home to go to college, or in this case, a Twisted Metal XP. So I really loved how the characters got treated in this movie, and how we got to explore some aspects of their personality that we didn't see in this movie. And I also liked that the movie didn't cheap out on its ending, because at the end of the movie, Vanellope actually does leave the arcade and join Slaughter Race full time. So I was kind of afraid that they were going to do this thing where they'd cheap out, where she'd go back to the arcade but then go and visit Slaughter Race every now and again. But no, they played it to the hilt, and she actually left the arcade, and the movie ends with Ralph and Vanellope still keeping in touch and still maintaining their friendship, even though there's distance between them. And I love that the movie didn't cower away from that.
Yeah, I thought a lot of it was, it went in directions you wouldn't expect. And you still get the same thing you'd expect out of this kind of film where, both of the characters are doing kind of dumb things, that they think are right, that they think will solve their problems, but really don't, and they're not communicating. But they're very human fears, I guess you could say. Like, they're doing stuff because they're afraid of losing something. So, you kind of roll your eyes a little bit when they make these stupid decisions, but they do a lot of other stuff that is just completely surprising. Now, especially if you watch after the credits.
Now, there was an aspect of the plot that I felt was a wasted opportunity, and that was one of the I hesitate to use subplot because they don't really do anything with it, but one of the side effects of the game being broken is that it gets unplugged. So now all the characters from Sugar Rush are homeless, and Fix-It Felix and Calhoun, who you'll recall got married at the end of the first movie, decide to adopt the kids, the racers, and let them come live with them. And it's shown that this is not a decision that has worked out all that well for Fix-It Felix, because he winds up meeting Ralph and Tappers and basically becomes an instant drunken mess where he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is completely, we're in over our heads. But that's as far as it gets explored. The next thing that we see about it is at the end of the movie, where the Surge Protector is asking Felix and Calhoun about the secret of parenting, and it does this gag where as Calhoun is explaining the secret of being a perfect parent, she gets drowned out by the racers, and that's all they do with it. And this is a wasted opportunity. I felt like this was a wasted opportunity for two reasons. The first is you don't cast Jane Lynch in your movie and then not do something funny with her. Like, that's just not done. She is an astounding comedic actress, and to just put her in the film for a grand total of like 3 minutes for what it basically amounts to a cameo is, to me, a waste of talent. Second thing is this would have been an opportunity to more further explore the characters of Felix and Calhoun, who, while, yeah, they were active players in the first film, we didn't really get a whole lot of character focus on them. And I felt like it would have been great to, occasionally cut back to the two of them and see how they're adjusting to having what are essentially 15 toddlers living with them now. So I felt like that was a bit of a wasted opportunity.
I actually thought that was a brilliant setup for a short. Like I wanted to see what would happen, and I already made up in my mind what I think happened, but I think we might still see it as a short, or like a direct to,
like a bonus feature on the Blu-ray
home videos. Yeah, or a direct to video home special or something like that. Like one of those kinds of things. That I think like that's the prime opportunity there. Still give you the content, but make you pay for it.
I guess. You're right. That is a possibility of a short film, and with Disney doing a bunch of those lately, there's a distinct possibility we might see that. So you're right. Maybe they'll do something with that down the line. Now, as far as the jokes regarding web culture, this is where we kind of get to the elephant in the room, because a lot of the jokes in this film are absolutely brilliant. But at the same time, they're very much products of their time. Like one of the ones that made me really laugh, you'll see references to things like Twitter and eBay and, YouTube and Snapchat and Instagram and all these things. But, you'll recall that back in Iron Man 1, they made a crack about MySpace, which was the big thing at the time. And nowadays people watch that film and like, what the fuck was MySpace?
Oh, I know, it's so sad.
Yeah, so I think with the exception of, and there were even jokes from calling back to older web culture. Like, I don't know if you caught this, but when Ralph goes down to the dark web to retrieve his cookie medal, he throws away this giant piece of rebar with the GeoCities logo on it.
I did. I caught that the second time I saw it.
Which that had me laughing because, yeah, GeoCities, God, that was awful. And then public chat rooms. But yeah, so but the thing is like, web culture is something that is amorphous and ever changing, and I'm kind of afraid that this movie is going to eventually age itself to the point where no one's really going to get the jokes. One of the things that you mentioned, Kat, is the post-credit scene, which we're going to go ahead and sound. We've already sounded the spoiler alarm, but we're going to sound it again for those of you who don't want the joke spoiled. Skip about 2 minutes from now. Ralph basically sings a Rickroll, and that's one of those things where it's like, it's funny now because Rickrolling is a big thing and it's a big meme that's going around. But can the same thing? Are we really going to be able to say the same thing 10 years from now? Is YouTube and BuzzFeed going to be the same big things 10 years from now as they are today? And that's kind of one of the fears I have from this movie, is that it's only going to be funny for a short while before eventually it gets to the point where no one's going to get the joke, if that makes any real sense.
Right. Like the character progression and all of that stuff is timeless. But, all of the internet jokes and what's popular and all of that is, might last a couple of years. And then 5 years from now, this movie could be, not irrelevant, but, just dated. One
thing that this movie does do really well that I think will be funny 10 years from now is how Disney makes fun of itself in this film. I don't think I've ever seen a more self-aware Disney film than this one, particularly in regards to the Disney princesses, who are just a long parade of shots at Disney. And they were great.
That was pretty brilliant.
Did you notice that they brought back a bunch of the original voice casts from the movies for the Disney princesses?
I did, because I'm that kind of person, and I was looking in the credits And I was like, oh, look, oh, Paige O'Hara, yes. And then I was looking at the music because the music credit came up really early, and it was like, Alan Menken did the music for this. Great.
But yeah, the Disney princesses stole the show. I would love to see, going back to we were talking about shorts. I'd love to see shorts about just like the day-to-day lives of the Disney princesses in the internet. One of the jokes that I really liked was when Vanellope first meets the princesses, they're all in their trademark dresses and they're fascinated by her clothing, and then the next cut to them, they're all wearing lounge clothes and geeking about how comfortable they are, and Ariel starts singing a song about wearing a shirt.
You once had a dream that I could wear a shirt. Like, oh my god, it was so funny. That would be pretty spectacular if there was a bonus feature that was like a full song of all the princesses getting together and singing about like comfy clothes. That'd be so good.
So, what was a Disney princess moment that you especially?
Oh my god, there were so many because I mean, like we've never had this many princesses in a like a big movie like this all together. So it was really fun to just like see them all on screen in this particular Disney style. Gosh, I think when Cinderella, like when Vanellope shows up and they're all like, oh, there's somebody here, intruder, and they're all like readying their weapons, and Cinderella breaks her glass shoe and holds it out like she's gonna shank her. Like, oh my god. And then that was like in the promo material, so you already knew that was gonna happen, but it was still really funny. But more than anything, I enjoyed looking at them in casual clothing and going, I want that. Like, I just want every piece of clothing that they wore.
And I guess that now that we're discussing characters, that brings us down to the cast. And, of course, John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman knock it out of the park again this film. But let's talk a bit about Gal Gadot as Shank. Who is this sort of I guess she's the final boss of this Twisted Metal XP called Slaughter Race. And I loved the chemistry between her character and Vanellope. It was almost like Obi-Wan meeting Luke Skywalker, but cooler.
Yeah, she's so cool. I mean, like Vanellope says that she's so cool. Her car is cool, her hair is cool, her clothes are cool. Like everything she is just like is super awesome. Because she's like this badass, like racer chick. She's got like a leather jacket and biker gloves, and you're like, okay, she looks really cool. And then everything that she says is really smooth or inspiring, and it's Gal Gadot, so she's got like this amazing voice. And she has like such a good relationship with the other player, like the other characters in her game. Like it's like she has a very healthy relationship with other people, especially when we compare it to the first Wreck-It Ralph, where things were a little bit messed up, and they're like very supportive of one another, and they're all like talking philosophically about, oh well, shouldn't we take a little more pity on these players because we're making this kind of hard. And she's like, good point, Butcher Boy. But you're just like, I love these guys so much. I love her crew. I love all of their names are like Felony and Butcher Boy, and her name is Shank. And you're like, oh god, they're so cool.
Shank was a really neat character, and again, another one that I'd like to have seen explored a little more. Because we got a couple of scenes where she and Vanellope are talking, and Vanellope's talking about leaving Sugar Rush to come join Slaughter Race. And again, I feel like it was kind of a missed opportunity. I think it would have been cool to have Shank kind of join Ralph Vanellope and kind of exploring the internet a bit. But again, because Gal Gadot, you don't cast someone like that in a film and then not do something with her.
I felt like there was actually a good amount of her. Because they had the other character, Yes, who's helping them explore the internet and everything, and Yes was amazing.
Played by Taraji P. Henson, who is the embodiment of YouTube. And can I say, one of the greatest things that I love about her character, and it's something that I didn't notice until after a few minutes, is that in literally every scene she's wearing a different outfit.
Oh, and her hair is different every time.
Yeah.
Her hair's like up, it's down, it's like like mohawked. She's so cool.
And sometimes it's even in the same scene. It's like just from one shot to the next. like her outfit will just completely change. And I love how I don't know, maybe this is just me reading too much into it, but I kind of read it into as being a commentary of how what's popular on YouTube is always changing.
100%. I also enjoyed that all of her clothing and jewelry was like luminescent, like it fucking glowed. Like, I don't know why they made that choice, but it was so cool looking.
So, yeah, her character surprised me because when we were first introduced to her, you know, she strikes you as one of those characters who's like obsessed with trends and what's, you know, the big thing, kind of, I guess, the fashionista in a weird way, which makes sense because, you know, she's the embodiment of YouTube, or BuzzTube as it's called in this movie, because I guess YouTube didn't want to sign the release form. You know, but then as the story goes on, you see that now she's actually genuinely invested in helping Ralph get the hearts and the likes that he needs to get the steering wheel, and she actually becomes like an actual like friend and ally to Ralph and Penelope. And I like that she wasn't just this one note, fashionista type character.
Yeah, I was surprised that she got as involved in the story as she did, because I kind of thought it was like, here's a character, she's this kind of stereotype, we're over and done. But she actually was there, like, right up until the final, like, the boss fight and everything, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah. So let's see, any other standouts in the cast that you think need to be talked about?
Knowsmore. Oh my god, no, so funny.
Let's see, who played Knowsmore?
Alan
Tudyk. Oh yeah, making his obligatory. He's getting to be sort of he's getting to be with Disney. He's getting to be with Disney movies what Sid is to Final Fantasy. He just has to make an obligatory appearance in every Disney film. It's
true. He's had like a voice thing since Frozen, I think.
Yeah.
So he's done like Frozen, he did Zootopia, he did, so maybe Wreck-It Ralph was first, I don't remember what order that went in. But he's kind of like their go-to guy now. He's probably met more of the Disney princesses than Ralph has. No, but anyway, so I really liked that character. It's like sort of a bit character who's supposed to represent like the search bar, like a search like a Bing or a Google or something. But just his voice and his mannerisms were very entertaining, and the fact that he likes Vanellope because Vanellope said please and thank you, and he thought, oh, that's such a nice girl, I like her a lot. And we all know that Vanellope is really like confrontational and kind of rude most of the time, but he's immediately like, oh, she's such a nice girl.
She's a sweet little child. Yeah, and that gets a nice little callback near the end of the movie when they're dealing with the giant the virus Ralph Hulk thing. And as they're getting yanked away from Knowsmore's shack, Ralph is like, thank you, and Knowsmore's just like, kind of a hollow gesture at this point, don't you think? I love how his character is basically, and it fits so perfectly. He had the demeanor of someone who's seen it all, because he has literally seen it all. Like, he sees it all because he's the search bar. So he just had this bored affectation, like, oh, here's what you're looking for. It's right over here. Yeah, nothing ever excites me because I know everything.
Until you're searching for something and he's doing that autofill your search. That part was great, because that is a real annoying thing about the internet, and just like him filling in everything.
I was disappointed that they didn't make an autocorrect joke with him.
Oh no, that would have been great. Oh gosh.
So, but I mean, that's the concept that's kind of hard to execute in a film, so I understand why they didn't. Any other cast standouts?
I mean, they introduced a lot of like new characters and stuff, but really, like, it was so heavily focused on Ralph and Vanellope.
Okay.
Shank.
All right, then I guess let's move on to the next aspect of the film. That's the presentation, the visuals and sound of this film. So, what did you think of this film's presentation?
Well, we all knew that this was going to be a product placement heavy film, but I severely underestimated how much product placement there would be in it. And it's sort of like the best way you could do product placement. You're like, hey, this is the internet. Every conceivable website that you've ever is here, and all the Disney and Marvel characters are all here, and it's so flawlessly done that you kind of don't even care that it's a whole huge chunk of product placement.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you bring that up, because I kind of get the feeling that a lot of these things show up. And of course, it's all done to serve the story, because, like you said, this is the internet. But I kind of get the impression that a lot of these things kind of sign to have their logos and stuff appear in this film, because it's a Disney film, and who doesn't want to appear in a Disney film, however tangentially? So I imagine this is one of those things where it was less the companies that went to Disney and said, look, we'll pay you this much money to be in our movie, and more Disney went to them and said, hey, we're making this movie, would you like to be in it? And them going, yes, we want to be in a Disney film. But then again, I don't know, that's an exploration of the marketing side of things that I know absolutely nothing about. But yeah, like the most of the product placement, there was none of it that I felt was really pointless. It was all there to either serve the story or to serve as a joke. Like we mentioned, the GeoCities logo showing up in the junkyard of the internet. And then one of my favorites was when Ralph looks up at the Google Tower and says, oh, well, we know where to go if we need goggles.
Yeah, a lot of it was just like setting up a scene, like the actual scenery, like the landscape. So it never felt like forced or anything, especially when they were in like the Disneyland area where, like there was stormtroopers and it was like an overload of Disney characters, and even that never felt forced.
Yeah, there's nothing about it that was really overpowering, and I really enjoyed that. Visually, this movie was stunning. I loved the landscape of the internet. And how it looked like one giant cityscape, and I absolutely loved the design of it, and I loved how there were neat little if you know anything about computer science and how network technology works, there was a lot of neat little nods to actually how the internet actually functions, like when they're inside the router and they get packaged up inside those little capsules. I saw that, being a network security guy, as being a riff on how a network packet is actually assembled in the router before it's sent out on the wire. So I thought that was a neat little touch. Now, what about you? What did you think of the visuals of this film?
I was super great up until like the Ralph virus, and then that actually weirded me out so much.
Yeah, that's really kind of where the film gets at its weakest point, and where the Ralph virus is introduced. It seems almost kind of like it was there just for there to be a villain.
Yeah, because it didn't really have one, and I'm all for like a virus makes sense, but like the fact that it was like a bunch of small Ralphs making a big Ralph, but like it wasn't just like a giant Ralph. But it was a bunch of tiny Ralphs making up a big one, and they were like constantly moving and shifting. It was fucking creepy. Like, I was deeply uncomfortable watching that part where I'm like, stop, zoom out, something, anything, so that I cannot see what is happening. Because I tried to think too hard about like the physics of it as soon as I saw it, and I was like, nope, I'm freaked out.
Yeah. The whole sequence with the Ralph virus felt very out of left field, and again, very tacked on. I mean, like I said, this is a film that's very much character driven and not conflict driven. And I feel like that we could have had a satisfying emotional climax without having to basically go full on obvious metaphor and have the Ralph virus. I don't know, that whole section of the film just felt very out of left field. Now, as far as the sound design, it was absolutely spectacular. But I kind of liked how the music was. It had kind of like this synth pop feel, but it wasn't like overpowering.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know, like the old joke, I'm the only one who notices the music.
Mm-hmm. I noticed the music every time a Disney princess opened up her mouth and started singing, or there was like a Disney song playing, or the Imperial March starts playing because there's a bunch of stormtroopers, and then fucking Rick Astley shows up after the credits.
We have to talk about the Disney songs, because one of the running gags of this movie is how every Disney princess gets their song, and Vanellope is trying to figure out how to get hers. And the takeaway that she gets from the instructions from the princess is, is you have to get it while looking into important water. And the next scene is she's looking at a spilled glass of water on the street in the internet, and she's trying to make the song happen.
And the best part is that it eventually works, and she does have an entire musical number. Again, with all the music done by Alan Menken, so it sounds straight out of a Disney film because it is straight out of a Disney film.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Gal Gadot and Shank's whole crew coming in and singing along in this big, epic, sweeping Disney number about slaughter race. Like, it's ridiculous.
And you would think, since there's no other musical number in the film, you would think you would feel totally out of place. But no, again, it works so much because it's in on the joke. Yeah.
It was really good. And it is nice to see Disney poking fun at themselves. We can come back to that point for a second here, because there's a lot of weird, not so great stuff that goes on in Disney films, and sometimes Disney will acknowledge it, like in Frozen, like you can't marry a guy you just met. They'll acknowledge it, but not really correct it, you know? And this is them going, wow, look, we know how we have a trend of this, so let's do a little bit to try and, just acknowledge it a little bit more than normal.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is probably the most self-aware Disney film I have ever seen, and I love that it shows that Disney is willing to basically poke fun and laugh at itself. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we're let me use my words here. We're not above mockery. Let's go ahead and make fun of ourselves for a bit.
Yeah.
So I guess now we've discussed the script and the cast and the presentation, let's start talking about some of our favorite moments of the film. So what were some particular moments in this movie that really stood out that you particularly enjoyed?
I really liked the moment where Calhoun is talking to Felix about, we've never talked about having a family, and then they just agree to adopt 15 children. Because it is so out of character for how we left Calhoun, and so we're getting to see a new side of this character who we've had an opinion of for several years now, and it was really great. Like, it was really nice to see Calhoun, taking this step forward and, deciding she wants to be a mom, and even if we don't get to see very much of it at all, it was still like a, wait, are you kidding me that you're actually going to do this? That is a terrible idea.
Yeah, and it's great to see this tough as nails fighter, who's still decked out in her full armor, by the way, like geeking out with this little Mario XP about the possibility of having kids, and it's so off the wall and unusual that it's full on hilarious and adorable.
And the fact that we have seen these kids, they are little shits. And the who was it, Surge or whoever's helping them trying to find
the Surge Protector. Yeah.
So much as says that these are monsters, and she's like, these are lost lambs who need a strong hand to parent them, and she's like being defensive of these kids, and then you turn and you see them and they're destroying everything.
Mom, why does your lame TV only have one channel?
It's a painting. Oh my god, it's so good.
Of course, being a gamer, one of the favorite moments that I have are all the game jokes, and I really love seeing Slaughter Race because, I'm a child of the '90s, and one of the big '90s franchises was Twisted Metal, which, for those who don't know, it was basically a demolition derby game where you had a bunch of cars racing around tracks and destroying each other. So when I saw Slaughter Race, I was like, ha! Someone likes Twisted Metal. And then another moment that I really enjoyed was at the beginning where Ralph and Vanellope are sitting on the bench and they're talking about Zangief and asking if he waxes.
Oh my god!
And Ralph is like, no, it's probably just the way his hair grows. And Vanellope's like, that I would accept that if it weren't for those little tufts of hair coming out of his boots. Oh my god, you're right. He's baby smooth everywhere else. And then another one that I thought was really neat was they're playing I Spy with My Little Eye, and they're talking, and Ralph basically makes the really obvious one of Pac-Man, and Vanellope's like, well, who else could it be? It's like, well, you got Mrs. Pac-Man, you Pac Baby, Pac Junior. And what really sells it to me is you've got a little Pac-Man kind of, rolling across the floor in front of them. And I just thought that was a really neat touch. I was disappointed, however, that in the years leading up to this, the producers kept saying that they were going to, come hell or high water, find some way to get Mario into this film, and Mario did not make a single appearance. So I kind of feel like I was sold a false bill of goods.
Well,
yeah,
still got a pretty good product out of it.
Yeah.
I really liked Ralph's viral videos because some of them were like terrible. And then they kind of got increasingly funny, but literally the best one was he did that unboxing and it was a bunch of bees. Because they go out of their way to point out that like bee puns are not that funny but trending. And it's kind of true, where like puns are terrible. We all know that puns are terrible and we love them anyway. Bee puns are great. And terrible. Like, because bee puns are so easy, they shouldn't be funny because you're like, oh, that was too easy. That was too easy, and then it's just like I'm gonna do a bee pun, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. So he does all of these videos, and the one that looks the least like it's gonna be about bees definitely has a bunch of bees, and they make a terrible bee pun during it. I was like, the peak of comedy, we have reached you.
And what's funny is that the kind of videos that he does, they're all like the most random stupid shit, but that's exactly the kind of thing that would go viral on YouTube, like the screaming goat. Like I've shared those videos. Like I've watched those goat videos going, yes, scream for me, goat, scream, let me hear you.
It does actually like raise some questions for me about like, okay, so they're filming these and putting them up on the internet, and like we always see in the in Ralph's game he's 8-bit, but when people are watching these videos, they see Ralph the way we, the viewers of the film, see Ralph. So I have like some kind of existential questions about how these things were filmed and distributed online, and is what the viewers seeing in their mind, is it all animated? Like, I'm so confused, and I shouldn't go down that rabbit hole because there's no good answer at the end of it.
We have to recite the Mystery Science Theater mantra. It's just a show. We should really just relax.
I know, but I thought about it and I'm like, how fucking weird. Like, if this was a real life thing, would I be looking at Ralph and seeing what looks like a real life person, or are they seeing a cartoon? Like, I'm so confused about that, but it was worth it for Open Sesabees.
I'll tell you a moment that really stood out to me, and that was again going back to how self-aware this movie is. It was at the end of the movie during the credits, where it cuts to the inside of the van where the baby Moana is talking with her mother, and she's like, it was a good movie, but there was a scene that was in the trailers but wasn't in the movie, and that made me sad. And then it starts playing out that scene.
Oh, that was so... We're like, wow, that was they set that joke up a long time ago. That was a long time for the payoff of that.
I was like, like the whole scene with the rabbit was funny enough in itself, but just that setup with the whole, there's a scene in the movie the scene in the trailers wasn't the movie. I was just dying. And then of course there was the Rickroll after that.
Yeah, oh my god, I had been told stay after the credits. There's something there, and then I was like, oh my god, that's brilliant. But I already knew that there was something Rick Astley because there was actually a promo video that got released in advance of the film that was Rick Astley getting Rickrolled with the Wreck-It Ralph Rickroll. So I was like, I wonder if they're going to bring that in. And then that was the end. And I'm like, oh, that was perfect. And then I posted on Facebook, hey, everybody, if you're going to go see this, make sure you stay after the credits. And then somebody was like, I hate you. I can't believe you made me watch that.
See, I missed the promo. I missed the Rick Astley promo video. But yeah, no, I saw. It actually, what made it so funny to me was actually because of your post. Because when they brought up the Frozen 2 logo, because I remember you being really big into Frozen when it came out, and how big a fan you were of that. So I was like, oh, so this is what Kat's so excited about, Frozen. You son of a bitch.
I mean, we definitely all got trolled during this film. Oh gosh. And it's definitely a film where as soon as it gets a home release, we are going to be watching it in slow motion, frame by frame, just like the first one, looking for anything that we missed. We're like, I have to find every Easter egg in this entire film, in a film that is like 85% Easter eggs.
Okay. All right. Well, we're running a bit long, so let's start wrapping things up by giving our final thoughts on the film. So, Kat, what are your final thoughts on Ralph Breaks the Internet?
God, it was really fun. It was really entertaining. I don't think I liked it as much as the first film, which doesn't really say anything because the first film was so excellent. It's got a very different vibe from the first film, just because the first film was very like retro. Hey, look at these references we're going to make to old games. And this one is very like hip and modern. Everything is now. So again, like we've said, we're worried about it becoming dated, but otherwise, like right now, this is an excellent film.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed this film. Like I said, not as much as the first one, but again, that comes down more to its chosen subject matter than its quality. I am worried that it's going to date itself, but I mean, we'll have to see. You know, history will show if that happens or not. But this is definitely a really enjoyable film. And so with that, this is the part of the show where we give our final rating on the film. As always, our rating scale is from best to worst. See it now, wait for matinee, wait for DVD, wait for cable, don't even bother. And Brian's rating, fuck this movie. So, Kat, what is your final rating on Ralph Breaks the Internet?
Absolutely go see it now. Assuming you've seen the first one. Even if you haven't seen the first one, which I don't know why you would be a person who hasn't seen the first one. But it's definitely great. It does make a good standalone film, but it's definitely better if you've seen the first one. So go see it right now.
Okay, and I'm also going to say see it now if you haven't already. And if you haven't seen it already and you're just listening to this now, we're very sorry for spoiling the Rickroll for you.
But not that sorry because you were warned.
Yeah. So anyway, that's about all the time we have for Nerd of the Third Power this week. We will see you guys next week. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the Cat.
Thank you for listening. Taka, play us out.
Whoa.
It's really creepy.
Yeah, I'm halfway expecting one time to start up Craig and hear I am Shodan and like, okay, yep, that's it. Nope. We're done. We're finding another recording tool.